There is a specific moment that broke me. It wasn't a big dramatic event, it wasn't a news headline. It was a Tuesday morning, about 8:30 a.m., right here in my nice little English neighborhood. I was walking to get a coffee, clutching my coat because, let's be honest, the UK weather is a personality trait all on its own, and I saw a group of kids. They couldn't have been more than 10 or 11 years old. They were walking to school by themselves, no parents hovering, no line of SUVs idling with the engines running, stretching back 3 blocks. Just three kids wearing their little blazers, laughing, swinging their backpacks, completely unbothered. And my American brain literally short-circuited. I had this visceral reaction, this internal panic of where are the adults? Is this safe? Who is watching them? And then it hit me. They are safe. They're fine. The reason my heart rate spiked wasn't because they were in danger. It was because I have been conditioned by 30 years of living in the United States to view the simple act of going to school as a high-stakes tactical operation. I've been living in the UK for a while now, and I need to talk to you about the school system. But I don't want to talk about test scores or rankings. I want to talk about the feeling. I want to talk about the absolute culture shock of realizing that the American school system, the one I grew up in, the one I thought was normal, is actually deeply systemically broken in ways we don't even notice until we step outside of it. We need to have a serious conversation about the vibe shift, because the difference between education in America and education in Britain isn't just about what they learn in the classroom. It's about how the society treats children, and honestly, it's kind of heartbreaking. Let's start with the most obvious thing, the thing that hits you the moment you look at a British playground: the uniform. Now, before I moved here, I had very American opinions about uniforms. I thought they were stifling. I thought they were about suppressing individuality. I thought, oh, my freedom of expression. In the US, we have this obsession with the idea that what a kid wears is a reflection of their soul. But let me tell you what that actually looks like in an American high school. It looks like class warfare. I was talking to my neighbor Gemma, whose son is in year 8, and she was complaining about having to buy branded socks or something. And I just looked at her and said, Gemma, do you know what dress coding is? She had no idea. I had to explain that in the US, we don't have uniforms, but we have these arbitrary, often sexist dress codes that turn teachers into fashion police. I remember being in school and watching girls get pulled out of class because their shoulder straps were 2 fingers wide instead of 3. We were measuring hemlines while trying to learn algebra. But the bigger issue in the US is the brand tax. In American schools, if you don't have the Nikes or the Lululemons or whatever the trend is that week, you are socially invisible, or worse, a target. We have created a system where a child's social standing is directly tied to their parents' disposable income, and we put that on display every single morning at 8 a.m. Here in the UK, everyone looks the same. And I know, British people complain about the cost of blazers, and they should. It's not perfect. But there is something profoundly democratic about seeing the son of a banker and the son of a bus driver wearing the exact same tie, the exact same scuffed shoes, and the exact same jumper. When you walk through those gates, the visual markers of poverty are significantly dampened. You aren't fighting the fashion battle every morning. You're just going to school. It removes a layer of cognitive load that I didn't realize American kids were carrying. Imagine how much brain power we waste in the US worrying about whether our outfit is cool enough or whether we're going to get dress coded. Here, you put on the kit, you grab your bag, and you go, the focus shifts from how do I look to what am I doing? But the uniform is just the surface. That's the cosmetic difference. The real shock, the one that keeps me up at night, is the architecture of fear. I made a mistake a few months ago. I was at a dinner party with some British friends, and the topic of school safety came up. I casually mentioned, oh yeah, the usual lockdown drills, turning off the lights, hiding in the closet, texting your mum, I love you, just in case. The table went silent. And I don't mean a lull in conversation silent. I mean a did she just admit to a crime silent. One of my friends, David, put his fork down and asked, wait, you practiced hiding from a murderer as a child? And I laughed. That's the sick part. I laughed because to us Americans, that is normal. I said, yeah, obviously, we did it once a month. It's like a fire drill, but for guys with AR-15s. They looked at me with this mixture of horror and pity that I will never forget. Here is the history we forget to talk about. In 1996, the UK had a tragedy, the Dunblane Massacre. A gunman entered a primary school in Scotland. It was horrific, it broke the nation's heart. But do you know what the UK did? They didn't offer thoughts and prayers, they didn't start selling bulletproof backpacks, they changed the law. Within 2 years, the UK passed some of the strictest gun control laws in the world, essentially banning private ownership of handguns. And do you know how many school shootings they've had since then? Zero. In the US, we have accepted that school shootings are just a natural disaster, like a tornado or an earthquake. We build our schools like fortresses. I have friends back in Texas whose kids go to schools with metal detectors, clear backpacks, and armed police officers roaming the halls. We call them school resource officers to make it sound friendly, but let's call it what it is. We are policing childhood. In the UK, the security is usually a fence and a heavy door with a buzzer. That's it. When I walk into my friend's kids' school here, I don't feel like I'm entering a prison. I feel like I'm entering a community centre. The psychological weight that lifts off your shoulders when you realise nobody here is worried about being shot is indescribable, and this leads to a massive difference in how kids behave. I've noticed that British teenagers, while they can be rowdy and loud and annoying like teenagers everywhere, they don't have that same underlying current of high-wire anxiety that I see in American teens. American high schoolers are existing in a state of hypervigilance. We have traumatized an entire generation, told them this is for your safety, and then wondered why teen mental health in America is in freefall. Living here has exposed the fact that the American solution to violence is always more violence. More guards, more guns, more drills. The British solution was remove the threat, and it worked. It's hard to admit that your country got it wrong, but looking at these kids playing in a schoolyard that isn't patrolled by a cop, yeah, we got it wrong. Now let's pivot to something that seems smaller, but is actually a huge indicator of how a society values its people. Lunch. In the US, the lunch lady is a trope. The food is, well, we all know what it is. Rectangular pizza, mystery nuggets, vegetables that have been boiled until they surrender, but the quality of the food isn't even the worst part. The worst part is the administration of lunch. I was reading a thread the other day from a teacher in the US who was talking about lunch debt. Just say that phrase out loud. Lunch debt, it sounds like a dystopian satire. In the richest country on earth, we have 6-year-olds who get their hot meal taken away and thrown in the trash because their parents' account is -$5. We give them a cheese sandwich of shame or nothing at all. We stamp their hands. We send debt collectors after families. In the UK, particularly for the younger years, reception to year 2, school meals are free, universal. It doesn't matter if your dad is a CEO or if he's unemployed. You get a hot meal, and it's not just fuel, it's a culture. They eat with knives and forks here. I know that sounds silly to point out, but in the US, we treat lunch like a pit stop. You have 20 minutes, scarf down your pizza, and get out. Here, there is a bit more of a civilized approach. The food is, okay, let's not get crazy, it's still institutional food. They have this thing called turkey Twizzlers that everyone seems to have trauma about from the early 2000s, and Jamie Oliver went on a crusade to ban them. But generally, it's real food, roast dinners, curries, actual vegetables. But the key is the universality. When you make the food free for the little ones, you remove the stigma. You don't have the free lunch kids and the packed lunch kids segregated by class. Everyone sits down and eats. It strikes me that in the US, we have commodified the basic biological need of a child to eat. We turned it into a transaction. Here, it's treated more like infrastructure. You need lights, you need heating, you need to feed the children. It's basic logic. Speaking of infrastructure, we have to talk about the P word, property taxes. This is the thing that makes the American school system fundamentally, structurally broken, and I didn't realize how bizarre it was until I tried to explain it to a British person. I was explaining to my neighbor why people in the US are so obsessed with good zip codes. I said, well, you have to buy a $600,000 house if you want your kid to have a science lab. She looked at me like I was speaking Martian. She said, but surely the government pays for the schools? And I had to explain, well, yes, but actually no. In the US, your educational destiny is tied to the property value of your neighbors. If you live in a wealthy suburb, your school has iPads, 3 orchestras, and a robotics team. If you live 10 minutes away in a poorer district, you have textbooks from 1994 and a leaky roof. We have legalized segregation based on wealth. We literally had a Supreme Court case about this, San Antonio v. Rodriguez, where they decided that actually there is no federal right to equal education. In the UK, it's different. It's not perfect. Please don't come for me in the comments. I know there are underfunded schools here too, but generally the funding comes from the central government. A kid in Liverpool gets roughly the same base funding as a kid in Surrey. The facilities might vary, and the PTA, they call it the PTA or Friends of the School here, still fundraises for extras, but the baseline is higher. I have visited schools here in lower income areas, and they still have libraries, they still have art supplies, they still have playing fields. In the US, we have normalized the idea that poor kids deserve poor schools. We just accept it. Oh, that's a bad district. We say it so casually. Living here has made me realize that bad district is just code for we as a society have decided not to invest in these people. And don't even get me started on the begging economy of American schools. I have a friend back in Ohio who is a teacher. Every August, she posts an Amazon wish list. She is asking for pencils. She is asking for tissues. She is asking for paper. She is a government employee tasked with educating the future of the Republic, and she has to beg strangers on the internet for Kleenex. I told a British teacher about this, and she was confused. She said, "We have budget cuts, sure, and sometimes we run low on glue sticks, but I don't buy the paper myself." The fact that American teachers are expected to martyr themselves financially for their job is a sickness. We call them heroes, so we don't have to pay them or fund their classrooms. Here, teachers are professionals. They are unionized. They strike. They demand better pay. And while they are still underpaid, let's be real, teachers are underpaid everywhere. They aren't expected to single-handedly fund the education system with their credit cards. Now, let's move to the classroom itself. The actual learning. There is a philosophical difference in how the US and the UK approach knowledge. The US system is a mile wide and an inch deep. The UK system is an inch wide and a mile deep. In the US, we have this liberal arts mindset all the way through. You take math, science, English, history, PE, Spanish, and an elective every year until you are 18, and then you do it again in college for 2 years. We want well-rounded students. In the UK, things get serious way faster. At age 16, kids take these massive exams called GCSEs. It stands for General Certificate of Secondary Education. These are high stakes. It's not like the SAT where you can retake it 5 times and superscore your way to victory. You sit in a giant hall in silence and you write essays, but then at 16 they narrow it down. They enter sixth form, or college, which is high school, confusingly. They pick 3 subjects, maybe 4. That's it. If you love history, you study history, politics, and English literature. You never have to solve a quadratic equation ever again. If you love science, you do biology, chemistry, physics. You never have to analyze a poem ever again. At first, I thought this was limiting. They're too young to choose. What if they change their minds? But then I saw what these 17-year-olds are learning. They are doing work that I didn't touch until I was a sophomore in university. They are specializing, they are becoming experts. The American system treats teenagers like overgrown children who need to be handheld through a little bit of everything. The British system treats them like young academics. However, this brings me to the stress. I don't want to paint the UK as a paradise. The pressure here is different. In the US, the pressure is a slow burn. It's the GPA grind. Every homework assignment, every pop quiz, every participation grade counts. You can never mess up. If you have a bad week in 10th grade, it pulls down your GPA and ruins your chance at Harvard. It is a 4-year marathon of perfectionism. In the UK, the grade doesn't really exist in the same way. You don't get a GPA. Your homework is usually just for learning. It doesn't count towards the final grade. Everything, and I mean everything, rests on the final exams at the end of the year or the end of 2 years. This is terrifying in its own way. You could be a brilliant student, have a bad day, get a migraine during the exam, and bomb it. That's it. Grade gone. It's sudden death. Academics. But there is a weird freedom in it. British kids aren't stressing about whether they did the extra credit worksheet on Tuesday. They are stressing about the big picture. It teaches a different kind of resilience. It's less about hustle culture and grade grubbing, begging the teacher for an extra point, and more about do you know the material or not? And this philosophy extends to university. Oh boy, the university application process. In the US, applying to college is a full-time job. You need the grades, but you also need the SATs and the ACTs, and you need to be the captain of the football team, and you need to have started a non-profit to save the whales, and you need to play the cello, and you need to write a trauma dump essay about the time you broke your leg and learnt the meaning of perseverance. We are obsessed with the holistic person. We are selling a brand. In the UK, you write one essay, it's called a personal statement, and it's basically, I want to study history because I like history and I read these books about history. That's it. They don't care if you play the cello. They don't care if you volunteered at the soup kitchen unless it relates to the subject you want to study. They just want to know, are you smart and do you like this subject? I helped a friend's daughter with her US application and her UK application in the same week. The US one felt like a beauty pageant, the UK one felt like a job interview, and then there's the cost. Look, British people will complain about tuition fees, and they are right to. It's currently about £9,250 a year, roughly $11,000. That is a lot of money, but compared to the US, it's a joke. I have friends in the US who are $100,000 in debt for a degree in marketing. We have normalized the idea that you should mortgage your future at 18. We have parents taking out second mortgages. We have the FAFSA, which is a government form designed by sadists. In the UK, the student loan system works more like a graduate tax. You only pay it back if you earn over a certain amount of money. If you never make big money, you never pay it back. And after 30 or 40 years, it gets written off. It doesn't affect your credit score. You can still get a mortgage. In the US, student loans are the only debt you cannot discharge in bankruptcy. You can gamble away millions, declare bankruptcy, and be free. But if you borrowed money to learn nursing, you carry that to the grave. The UK system realizes that education is a public good, not just a private luxury. But let's get back to the daily life, specifically regarding special needs, or SND, special educational needs and disabilities. In the US, if your child has a learning disability, you have to become a lawyer. I am not joking. Parents of special needs kids in America are some of the toughest warriors I know. They have to fight for an IEP, individualized education program. They have to threaten lawsuits to get a speech therapist. The school district views them as a liability. It is an adversarial relationship. I was talking to a mum here whose son has autism. She told me about the process. She met with the SENCO, Special Educational Needs Coordinator. They sat down, they made a plan. Was it perfect? No. Are the waiting lists for diagnosis long? Yes, the NHS is struggling, that's a whole other video. But the attitude was different. The school didn't look at her like she was trying to rob them. They looked at her like, okay, he is our student, how do we help him? There is a concept here called pastoral care. Every British school takes this seriously. It's not just about grades, it's about the whole child. Kids are in form groups, like homeroom, but you stay with the same group for years. They have a head of year whose job is basically just to make sure the kids in that grade are okay mentally and socially. In the US, we have guidance counselors, but the ratio is often one counselor to 400 students. They are paper pushers. They are there to get you into college, not to ask why you look sad today. In the UK, the pastoral layer acts as a safety net. It catches kids before they fall. One more thing that really highlights the broken nature of the US system, the concept of the bubble. In the US, we shelter our kids. We drive them to school, we drive them to soccer, we drive them to play dates. We monitor their phones, we track their location. We are terrified of the world. In the UK, independence is part of the curriculum. I remember seeing a walking bus my first week here, a line of 6-year-olds holding hands, walking down the street with 2 teachers wearing high-vis jackets. They were going to the local library. In the US, you'd need a permission slip, 3 chaperones, and a chartered bus to go 3 blocks. Here, they just walk. By the time they are 11 or 12, most British kids are taking the public bus or the tube subway to school. They have their own Zip Oyster cards, travel passes, they navigate the city, they manage their time. I have seen 12-year-olds on the London Underground reading books, chatting, completely self-sufficient. In the US, a 12-year-old on public transit alone would prompt a call to Child Protective Services. We are stunting our children in America. We are so afraid of the stranger danger myth, which statistically is extremely rare, that we prevent them from developing the very skills they need to survive: resilience, navigation, problem solving. British kids seem older to me, not physically, but in their capacity to handle the world. They aren't waiting for an adult to tell them where to go. So, why does this matter? Why am I ranting about this? Because I love America. I really do. But loving something means telling it the truth. And the truth is, the American school system is reflecting the worst parts of American culture: our inequality, our fear, our obsession with status, and our lack of communal care. We treat education as a consumer good. You buy the best house to get the best school. You buy the best clothes to fit in. You buy the best resume to get into college. You buy the degree. The UK system, for all its flaws, and it has many, from crumbling concrete in buildings to overworked teachers, still operates on a different fundamental belief. Education is a right. It's the belief that a child should be fed, regardless of their wallet. It's the belief that a child should be safe, without needing armed guards. It's the belief that a child should have the same opportunities whether they are in a village or a city. Living here has been a detox. I've stopped worrying about active shooters. I've stopped judging kids by their sneakers. I've started seeing education as a quiet, steady, normal part of life rather than a high-stakes battle royale. If you are an American watching this, I want you to ask yourself, why do we accept the fear? Why do we accept the debt? Why do we accept the inequality? And if you are British watching this, please appreciate what you have. I know you guys love to moan. It's the national sport, but you have built something that from the outside looks remarkably like a functioning society. Don't let it become like us. Fight for your NHS. Fight for your state schools. Keep your uniforms. Keep your turkey twizzlers. Actually, maybe not the turkey twizzlers, but keep the humanity, because that Tuesday morning, watching those 3 kids walk to school alone, laughing without a care in the world, that shouldn't be a radical sight. That should just be Tuesday. I'm Olivia. Thanks for listening to my story time. I'm going to go get a tea. A proper one.